Rink Wide Vancouver. Pre-game, post-game, every game presented by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play at Bodog.net. Wadden and JPat back once again with the pre-game show as the Canucks get set to head out on a 2-game road trip facing off against the Nashville Predators, JPat. But 2 games might feel more like 4, though.
Yeah, every team throughout the season has tough parts of the schedule. The Vancouver Canucks have hit probably their toughest when it comes to travel in Nashville and in St. Louis. Then they have to hustle home for a one-off against the best team in the National Hockey League, the Boston Bruins, on Saturday. Oh, yeah. Then they turn around and they have to fly to Dallas for a game next Monday. So, yes, it is a 2-game road trip this time, but coming home, changing some laundry, and then heading out on the road, it's going to feel like 4 straight away from home here. And so we'll see if they can set the tone with a victory in Music City.
Let's get to the lineup change, which is presented by Delaney's OK Tire out there on Fraser Highway in Langley. Colin Delia to get the start and goal, and not expecting any other changes up front.
Yeah, the Canucks have 3 goalies on this trip. Thatcher Demko is out on the road, but it is going to be Colin Delia. Rick Tocchet saying that after a morning skate. The team did, in fact, take to the ice at Bridgestone Arena. We know that Rick Tocchet generally doesn't do morning skates, but yesterday was a travel day. They didn't touch the ice, so just kind of worked the rust off, I guess. Haven't played since Saturday night, and Colin Delia hasn't played since the 6-1 loss to the Detroit Red Wings at home a week ago, so he's got to try to find a way to right the ship there. Before that was a winner on Long Island. And we know for the most part Colin Delia has provided the Canucks credible goaltending, but now with Artur Silovs in the mix, we haven't seen Delia in a week's time. So he gets the nod in goal. Sounds like Silovs will be the backup. And we learned that Curtis Lazar is not on this trip, so he's not going to play tonight. He won't play on Thursday in St. Louis. Otherwise, looks like it's going to be the same 18 skaters that defeated the Philadelphia Flyers. So a player like Christian Wolanin will stay in on defense, play his second game as a Vancouver Canuck. And then up front, it looks like the same 12 skaters that they used in that 6-2 win against the Flyers.
Elias Pettersson, of course, will be in the lineup, coming off a 5-point night, his third 5-point night of the season. Also a big milestone for him tonight.
Yeah, they grew up quickly. This will be his 300th regular season National Hockey League game. And of course, we all remember his debut against the Calgary Flames, scored on his first National Hockey League shot, and kind of gave us an indication then of, the special player that he might become. He scored 10 goals in his first 10 games in the National Hockey League. And yeah, he was going on Saturday night, even before the empty netters. He was still having a fine night, but rounded off his night with the back-to-back empty netters, 5-point night. Now, it's interesting. I was looking at how has he followed up his 2 previous 5-pointers this season. Well, against Anaheim, he had 5 points back in November. The next game was against these Nashville Predators, and they held him off the score sheet. The second time he had 5 points was against Seattle just before Christmas, and he backed that up with a couple of assists in a victory in Edmonton. So a little bit of a mixed bag there, but coming off a 5-pointer, we'll see what he can do against the Preds tonight.
And of course, Elias Pettersson is part of the top 6 forward group that played very well against Philadelphia. Bottom 6, not so much.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say he leads that top 6. He leads the team in scoring up to 71 points in the season. He had the 2 empty netters, Kuzmenko and Beauvillier, his line mates, they scored. PDG, Phil DiGiuseppe, had the other goal for the Canucks, and he was playing on that line with Miller and Besser. So all of the offense the other night came from the top end of the lineup. And that's fine. That's what you would expect. But under Rick Tocchet, we've seen some of the bottom guys in this lineup get a little bit of a boost, but that certainly wasn't the case the other night. And the fourth line got absolutely buried by a Philadelphia team that doesn't score an awful lot. So looking for a little bit more of a boost from lower in the lineup tonight against the Predators.
Rick Tocchet's gone 10 games now. What have we seen so far from his coaching?
Well, 4-5-1, so nearly a 500 record. Now, 3 of the 4 victories have come on home ice against teams that aren't going to be anywhere close to the playoffs. And the one win that came on the road was against the Islanders. And of course, they're right there in the thick of things in the wild card race in the East. So they haven't exactly beaten a lot of good teams, but a record of 4-5-1. More than that, you look at the goals for and the goals against. Canucks have scored 37 goals, but they have given up 43 in those 10 games, 4.3 per game. That's not going to get it done very often. And in fact, in that stretch since Tocchet took over, the Canucks are the worst defensive team in the National Hockey League. Now, the power play has seen a little bit of a bump. It's running at 22.6%, but the penalty kill, stop me if you heard this story before, 63.3%. So the coaching change really has made no difference. In fact, the penalty kill in the 10 games under Tocchet is slightly below the Canucks season average, which we know is worst in the National Hockey League.
Let's take a look at the Preds now, who suffered a crushing loss over the weekend to Minnesota, and their playoff hopes are dwindling right now.
Yeah, they played back-to-back on the weekend. Big 7-3 win at home over the Florida Panthers, and they liked the fact that they had 7 goals. And this isn't a team that scores an awful lot. So for them to get 7, it was a goal-scoring bonanza. But they turn around, they go into Minnesota. Minnesota is the team that the Predators really are chasing for that second wildcard spot in the Western Conference. They were down early. They rallied in the third period. They scored the tying goal in the final minute of regulation. It looked like they were going to get it to overtime and get at least something with a chance to get both points out of that game. And an absolute dagger as the Wild responded and scored with 21 seconds remaining in the third period. And so Mini skated away with a 4-3 regulation victory. Predators leave empty-handed. And this is a team that is without Philip Forsberg, who's going to miss his 5th straight game. He's their leading goal scorer. We know that he signed that big ticket after a massive offensive season last year. Hasn't been as dynamic this time around, but he's still their leading goal scorer and one of their top scorers. This will be his 5th game. Believed to be a concussion, suffered against the Philadelphia Flyers a couple of weeks ago. He's skating again, but not ready to return. So a team that struggles to put the puck in the net without its leading goal scorer, yeah, that's going to make making the playoffs that much more of a challenge for this Nashville team.
No Forsberg, but they got Roman Josi, though.
Yeah, who is always a threat. Of course, a defenseman. He's their captain. 15 goals from the back end already this season for Roman Josi to go along with 34 assists. So he is their leading point getter at 49 points. Again, a fairly pedestrian total for a team leader, but that is what the Nashville Predators are, and this is who they've got. And Josi is one of those guys, loves to shoot the puck. He's 8th in the league in shots on goal, but tops among all NHL defensemen, 226 shots. So the Canucks have to be prepared for that anytime the puck is on his stick. He's looking to let it fly, and as we said, 15 goals, so he knows how to find the back of the net. He plays a ton. He plays in all situations. He is one of the top defensemen in the National Hockey League, and the Preds certainly are leaning on him right here, right now.
You might not be familiar with the name Tommy Novak, but he has been scoring at a very good clip for the Preds.
Yeah, this is a 3rd-round pick, a Minnesota kid who has made it to the National Hockey League and is now making a little bit of a name for himself. He hasn't played a ton yet, but he's got 7 goals and 16 points in his 23 games this season. For a guy that's averaging about 11 minutes of ice time, you know me and do something, and we'll get to do something here shortly, but this is a guy that's doing something for the Predators. He's had 5 points in the last 2 games alone. So the big win over Florida, and then he backed it up. He had a goal and an assist the other night against Minnesota as well. So yeah, I don't think people around the league are talking about Tommy Novak, but the Canucks are facing the Preds tonight. Don't be surprised if you hear the name Tommy Novak in offensive situations, because right now this is a guy that is providing a little bit of juice for the Preds.
Let's get to the stat that stands out. It's presented by Jason Hominick at jason.mortgage.
All right, join me. Let's get in the time machine here. We'll go back to early November. The only other meeting so far between the Canucks and the Preds, Vancouver jumped out to a 3-0 first period lead. Of course, at that point of the season, holding on to leads was one of the storylines around this team, and as it turned out, they couldn't hold on to this one either. Preds rallied. They scored 3 to tie. They got it to overtime. Nothing settled there, and Nashville beat Vancouver 4-3 in a shootout. And this is of note because, well, it was the other time that they've played this year, but also it's the only shootout loss the Canucks have suffered so far this season. So we'll see. I'm not imagining that this is in Rick Tocchet's playbook because he wasn't even around as the head coach then, but a little bit of a revenge game for the Vancouver Canucks, perhaps. Whatever the case, this was part of the early season story, was that the Canucks could not hold on to leads. They didn't that night. If they get a lead tonight, let's see if they do a better job with it. The stat that stands out is a presentation of Jason Hominick at jason.mortgage.
Let's get to my Bodog Best Bet. I'm on a bit of a heater right now. I've won 2 straight, up to 22 wins on the season. Kind of feel like I'm cheating with this one, JPat. Quinn Hughes and Roman Josi, both over 0.5 assists, almost 2-1 on your money. And again, Josi and Hughes, 2 of the highest scoring defensemen in the NHL. This one feels like a tap-in.
So you just need them to find the score sheet because they can't get half an assist. So yes, 1 assist each. I like this call. Again, I'm not expecting this is going to be a high-scoring game. We know that the Canucks possess the offense. I think the Predators recognize they've got UC Saros between the pipes. He's their number 1 guy, and he's got some really nice numbers. Another all-star appearance for him last month in South Florida. But I do think that, especially without Philip Forsberg right now, you're going to see a Nashville team that is going to try to lock it down. So I think it'll be a low-scoring game, but yeah, I mean, the way Quinn Hughes generates his offense and Roman Josi's involved, I like this one. Dare I say, you could get on a little bit of a run here.
Could be. Looking for my 23rd win of the season, see if I can pass the Canucks tonight. However, they could get a W as well, so we could be tied come the end of the evening, and it could be one of these guys that could help the Canucks get that W. Who tonight is going to do something in this game?
Well, I mentioned earlier that the bottom six, I did not think had a particularly good night against an offensively challenged Philadelphia team, but it was particularly the fourth line that absolutely got crushed in the underlying numbers, pinned in their own zone, could barely get out of their own end, and spent most of the night defending. You'll remember that Dakota Joshua was one of the guys that got the Rick Tocchet bump, the new coaching bump, scored, in fact, in 2 of the first 3 games under Rick Tocchet. Well, since the All-Star break, Dakota Joshua has gone pretty quiet. Now, I say that, and I also recognize he thought he had scored against the Rangers last week with the shot that deflected in off the pant leg of Curtis Lazar. So I want to at least acknowledge that. But when it comes to actually being credited with goals, Dakota Joshua has now gone 7 without scoring on his own. So he's a guy, Rick Tocchet loves those guys that battle along the boards. He certainly has to take care of business in that area of the game, but you'd like to see some of the guys a little lower in the lineup chipping in with offense. So Dakota Joshua is a guy that I'm looking at to do something to start this road trip in style to help the Vancouver Canucks get a victory. And if they do, they'll back up the one that they got against the Philadelphia Flyers on Saturday night and chance to even the season series against these Preds with one more meeting still to come. And then I'll be back in Vancouver early next month.
Let's see if the Canucks can get a little winning streak going here as they kick off this road trip in Nashville. This has been another edition of the Rink Wide Vancouver podcast presented by Bodog. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. Remember, Rink Wide is the show that always scores.